This changes everything. So yeah, I have a problem. I have a real gas problem. Did I buy the Nikon FC, return it, sorry, unique photo, New Jersey, and then buy it again just recently? Why, yes, I did. The Leica SL3 is not here yet. There are no used Leica Q3s on the market yet, and I'm just getting antsy. I'll make another video about my opinions on buying Leicas used and not new in the vast majority of cases. Once in a while, I'll get excited and do something crazy and buy a new Leica, but that hasn't happened in quite some time. I've been able to control myself. However, this long wait for the Q3 and SL3, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the SL3. I might just have to get in line. I don't know. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is that I'm getting antsy because those cameras that I'm really interested in haven't come out yet. And I'm looking for alternatives to those cameras in the meantime, or maybe permanently. This is a lot cheaper than a Leica camera, and it's got a lot of retro vibes, just saying. So, what made me buy this camera again? In playing with some Fujifilm cameras, the Fujifilm X-H2 and X-H2S in particular, I had gotten an X-H2S to test it for video for these YouTube clips against the Panasonic S5 IIX on which I'm filming right now. And that got me thinking, the X-H2S got me thinking about the X-H2. You know, Fujifilm has been at this mirrorless game for over a decade now, and those cameras are really fully developed. They have a joystick, they've got a nice grip, they've got that beautiful 40.1 megapixel sensor that Fuji recently developed that just has a gorgeous output. Their interface is a joy to use. They have now thought of the little things like you tip the screen, the image tilts also. You know, they have blinkies in live view. All these little things that, at least on the photography side, make those cameras a total joy to use. Not to mention the nice styling. Fuji's design language is usually really nice. I especially like the retro leaning ones, which is not as true of the X-H2, although I would say it does still have a little retro vibe. Not as much as this guy, but still it doesn't look quite like a Sony or a Canon modern, DSLR mirrorless copy camera. But so anyways, so in playing with the X-H2, I started to think, you know what? I'm just a full-frame snob. The Fuji is a great camera, and if you're in the Fuji system, I get it. I highly recommend the X-H2. If you watched my 2023 Camera of the Year Awards ceremony, I awarded the X-H2 the best APS-C camera of the year, and it is one of the best hybrids on the market, probably for the price also. Although this is about the same price, so, a few $100 swings, got to think about it. The S5 IIX on sale is $2,000, just saying. So, thinking about the Fuji X-H2, I started to think, well, what else is around this price range that has a lot of the features I wanted? And I started looking around on Amazon, and I ran across this little lens right here. The Artralab Hong Kong No Nikkor MC 35mm f1.4. It even says, I don't know if you can see this, 1980s on it, right? This company in Hong Kong totally out Nikon'd Nikon. Look at this thing. It looks just like an old school f-mount lens from back in the 1980s and even early 90s. It's just missing those little, metal silver rabbit ears to catch the metering thing for a real film camera. But man, it looks and feels like an old Nikon lens. But primary among all things, okay, is that it has, is it going to focus? An aperture ring. A real, honest to goodness, working aperture ring, right? I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the video, but it moves the diaphragm manually, just like an old Nikon lens that it looks just like. Heck, it even has the distance scale, which is pretty accurate. I've been testing it, and it's pretty accurate. So that got me pretty excited, I copped a Fujifilm X-H2. I copped this at the same time. I started shooting them side by side. You know, I will say, I should mention that Artralab Hong Kong makes the same lens for Fuji. So I put that same lens, but it's like a 24 millimeter because of the APS-C crop. I put that on the X-H2. I put this 35 millimeter on this camera, and I shot them side by side. I played around with the the film recipes, whatever you call them for Nikon. The Fuji Film Weekly film recipe guy actually came out with some recipes for this camera, so I loaded them onto this and tried them out. The controls of the Nikon Picture Control utility that you put on your laptop to load those into here is just okay. I feel like it's missing some features, like some curve contouring features that might make it more useful. But still cool that you can do it. It's a step in the right direction towards Fujifilm simulation, so that's cool. It really only takes effect on the JPEGs. Unlike Fujifilm, it does not affect the RAW files. You get the same RAW file regardless of which picture profile you're shooting in on this. It does drive me a little bit nuts with the Fuji cameras that even though you're shooting in RAW, whatever the film simulation is that you have on there will affect how the RAW is processed by the camera. It drives me nuts. You can't just turn that off in the camera. Totally nuts. Fuji fixed that. As you can see from these couple of image samples that I'm putting up right now, the JPEGs out of this camera are not superb. Not really a fan. In the second example that I'm putting up here now, these are the two RAW files side by side. As you can see, once you have, put them both into linear response, match them side by side, you do start to see that this camera with its full frame produces about the same results, depending on the angle and so forth, maybe even slightly better results than the X-H2. Overall, I stand by my original conclusion that I made in this camera versus the X-T5 that just straight out of camera, workflow wise, just in general, these Fujifilm 40 megapixel sensors do put out a nicer image without doing any work. It is a higher resolution file, so you can zoom in a little bit more in certain cases, and the Fuji colors are just, in my opinion at least, far superior to the Nikon colors. And the fact that you can choose so many different kinds of colors with all different film simulations of the Fuji cameras, when you don't want to turn them off, I do think perhaps, the Fuji cameras edge this out in terms of image quality, given all those caveats, right? That, you're not shooting in low light, that you're wanting a faster sort of pipeline of image processing, all these things. The Fuji makes it easier and generally has a pleasing image coming right out of the camera. Just the way they do sharpness, contrast, all these things, it is a little bit nicer. But you put it into linear response, you take all that Fuji magic out of it and just have the digital file, and you got a full frame sensor camera here, even if it is lower megapixels and you can't zoom as much to the file. Maybe you can't crop it quite as much. This stands up and it's all right. You can make it work and be just as happy with the files, I would say, pretty much. Also, I would say that in low light, this outperforms the Fuji by quite a bit. Lately I've been shooting a lot at night, so that has really come in handy, and that is also part of my decision being swayed back to this camera. Kick the camera. But yeah, so in terms of RAW files, this guy just fine, keeps up with the Fuji sufficiently enough for what I want to use this for. So with this more Nikon than Nikon lens, is this camera a keeper? For me, yeah, it is. This may replace my Fujifilm X100V as my daily carry, at least for a little while. A lot of the gripes I voiced in my original videos, my initial impressions, and the final verdict against the X-T5 video still remain. This camera is it's really nicely built for the most part. The battery door, it's almost certain I'm going to snap this battery door off at some point. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to sit it down like this, and it's going to snap right off. It's almost certain. I might have to get two just to be ready for that exigency. But otherwise, the build quality is pretty nice. These door flaps are a little flimsy, but feels solid. Nice brass styles. I really like that. Feels like-alike in some ways. But it's very heavy. I would say probably still too heavy. I feel like there's ways they could have gotten this lighter. If the M11s are light, quite a bit lighter than this, I feel like Nikon can do it too. Gotta have the shutter come down and protect the sensor. I've had this camera a week, and I've already had several times where like a big piece of thread got in there and messed up my image, dust on it, just let the shutter come down and cover the sensor so I don't get dust while I'm changing lenses. It'll be fine. Just let us do it, Nikon, please. Same thing. Grip's a little too shallow. Really should have some sort of protrusion here so you put your thumb on it and hold it like this. I did buy the small rig grip for it again, but honestly, because the camera's so heavy, I've been leaving the grip off, even though it makes it feel a little bit nicer in the hand and more solid to hold it. And instead, I've been just carrying it on this strap, this Wotancraft, this beautiful leather Wotancraft strap. I think this strap has a really nice vibe with the whole camera because it's got like a little bit of modernness with these cords, I feel like. But then the leather has the sort of more retro vibe. And they put my initials on it, so I like that. But yeah, I think I'll probably do a review on this strap, comparing it to like Peak Design straps. And then there's another brand that I'm blanking on right now. Clever Supply Co. So I think I'll do a review comparing these two, and maybe I'll throw the Peak Design guys in there too, because I'm really enjoying these straps that are a little less sort of techy and more leather and old school, but then that have the Peak Design anchor clip guys on it. I love that so much. You can take these off so quick. You can put a collar, cuff job thing here. I got one of those from Wotancraft also. More on that in another video. But anyways, yeah. So I've been carrying it like this, just on the strap around my shoulder, and that's been working pretty good. Kind of like an old school 1980s camera. That's how I would carry, a Nikon film camera back in the day. I'm also, I have to say, really excited about this because, for me, growing up in Wisconsin, go Pack, go, baby. Yes, wild card, come on. I didn't know Leica even existed. For me, in my mind, the professional top of the pops type camera was a Nikon SLR, like an F3 or like an FM2, or a big guy, like a D series camera. So, it's pretty neat to have a digital one like that and be able to afford it without, having to trade in a kidney or what have you, give up my college tuition. So there is, some history, some emotion, I think, tied in this that makes me excited that this maybe is going to work out for me. I think that's also why I like this lens so much, because now it feels like a complete package. You have the whole, exposure triangle here, ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, all there at your fingertips. I feel like that's so important to the shooting experience and was so totally missing with the retro lenses that Nikon made for this camera. Although I did get the 28 millimeter because I want autofocus sometimes. Sometimes I'm just lazy. But this is so much better. This adds so much to the experience. But yeah, going back to the gripes, it's heavy, needs a sensor shutter cover. One thing that bugs me is that the distance scale doesn't show up on the screen because this is a non-native lens. There's no 6-bit coding or any contacts talking to the camera. So you don't get the aperture, you don't get the distance in the EXIF data or on the screen here. So Nikon, just make a bunch of these lenses. Artralab Hong Kong, make more of these in different focal lengths. Right now, you can only get it in the 35 millimeter focal length or 24 for APS-C cameras. Would love to see like a 50, an 85, a 135, maybe a wide angle guy. Work with Nikon, get the contacts so that it'll talk to the camera. Or Nikon, just buy Artralab, and start pumping these out with the contacts. They talk to the camera. And then I can have this neat collector's edition version of this. What else? 2 card slots. I'm okay with a little card slot. It'd be nice to have 2 or a CF Express card, but I'm pretty okay with the solution they came up with the micro SD and the SD card. That's pretty okay. Yeah, I will also say manual focusing on this could be a little bit better. Either they could have, made these push-in dials so you could use this to zoom in, or just made these zoom buttons, higher up or more customizable. I'm not sure, but it is a little clunky to have to take your thumb off and go all the way down here to zoom in or zoom out. Also, I don't like that when you zoom in, you can't just tap the shutter button and have it jump back out. You actually have to take a picture, and then it'll jump back out when you're zoomed in. So that could use a little refining and improvement. You know, the whole features of like, you know, the focus point, you know, guiding the image stabilization, and then like eye detect, which does work with this lens, even though it doesn't talk to the camera in the eye detect in manual focus feature. You know, that's cool, but I'm not always shooting people in manual focus. I'm shooting lots of things. I'm an artist, darn it. You know, I'm doing arty things, shooting random stuff. So you know that feature is cool and is great if you're shooting people or whatever subject detect mode you have on, whatever subject it's detecting. That's great, but a lot of times that doesn't really help me. I would much rather have the focusing work like Fuji does, where you can have a button customized to zoom in and then quickly zoom out, instead of being sort of forced to do it the Nikon way. You know, in terms of buttons, another thing I just gotta harp on again. Why Nikon? Didn't you put a joystick on this? You know, just put a joystick on it, please. You know, also it would be nice to have a spinny dial here, so you could put ISO here. Plenty of videos about how weird ISO is on this camera, but you can map that ISO functionality to either this front button, or you can take out this record button and map it there too. So to me, that's another just like getting into the mindset of shooting a Nikon camera. And once you get into it, it makes a lot of sense. And in some ways, it's nice because you don't have to take your hand off the camera to move the ISO. You just tap the button and then scroll around the ISO. Or you shoot this thing the way I'm shooting it pretty much always. You just put it manual and use the dials. You know, another thing I'll say is that Fuji does have a more sensible, reasonable way of handling these dials. But for me, that's okay because I'm just going to shoot this camera manual all the time and just use the dials. But that's just me doing me. You do you, baby. You do you. What else? What else don't I like about this that could be improved? I think that might be it. Maybe higher resolution viewfinder. You know, another thing I noticed comparing this to the Fujis is that I think this viewfinder is bigger, just like in size and like land, you know, acreage wise, land mass wise. It's definitely lower resolution than the XH2. You know, you do miss manual focus, and sometimes you're off a little bit because you really need. I feel like you need a 5.6, 5.9, whatever it is, viewfinder or up to really have a good manual focusing experience. Anything less in resolution, and you just can't get that fine detail you need to really do like pinpoint manual focusing, especially since this guy goes to 1.4. You know, they make f1, I think, or f.9 lenses. Like Voigtlander has a f1 50 millimeter for this, if I'm not mistaken. I'm thinking about getting it, but it's over $1,000, so I might rent it first. We'll see. More on that later. I'll probably make a video about it regardless. Also, you know, I plan to get the Mega adapter and try some Sony lenses on this as well. Pretty excited about that functionality. I'm thinking those little Sony Pancake 40 millimeter and 24, I think, and 50 millimeter guys might work really well. Or the Sigma contemporary little guys, might throw a couple of those on it. Really want to keep this compact, especially since I'm not using the grip. But I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and any lens I put on this camera must have an aperture ring. So, like I say, I think with that Mega adapter, that will expand the universe of those lenses, because right now, I think, you know, besides some Viltrox autofocus lenses that are pretty big, and a few Nikon lenses that have like a customizable ring that could be put to aperture, this is the only lens for this camera that looks like this, with a true, dedicated, beautiful, gorgeous aperture ring, giving you the full exposure triangle. So I think that's really it. You know, the last thing I'll say is you know, I really, really, really want Nikon to come out with a higher end version of this. You know, do an F3 tribute. Put the red stripe here. You know, make it the Ferrari of, you know, mirrorless cameras. Put the Z7 sensor or that new 61 megapixel sensor in here. You know, put the A7R5 screen that flips out and up. You know, it really would be nice to have waist level shooting on this, especially when you're shooting on the street like this. You know, put this heavy beast around your neck, and then have the screen here, and you're just looking down, and people don't even realize you're shooting. That would be superb. You know, actually make this a shutter release. That would be cool. I'm thinking about getting the little remote to see how that works for street shooting. Just kind of have the camera here and have the remote, click, 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 click. So another video on that if I get that. But yeah, you know, look, Nikon, make the higher end version. Make the F3 tribute. You know, make it a little bit lighter. Put the sensor shield or the shutter over the sensor, so when I change the lens, I don't get crap all over the sensor. put a joystick on there, better screen, higher resolution, better viewfinder, higher resolution viewfinder, make some more lenses with aperture rings on like this, or just buy Artralab and have them make them for you, and you will have a superb camera. Heck, even make a rangefinder one. Just go right after Leica. Go back to your roots and just bite off Leica, copy them exactly. Just make an M11 knockoff. I'll buy it. I would rather have an M11, I think, with a high-end viewfinder than the rangefinder. I'll give up the rangefinder experience, which is wonderful. It's a cerebral experience. I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. But, if you give me a $2,500 or $3,000 camera, I can buy 3 of those, for one M11. And, I'm not a fanboy. I go where the functionality, image quality, serves me best. So, Nikon, you're so close. You can do it. Or, just take the Z8, basically, and put it in this form factor. You can do it. I know you can. You got it in you, Nikon. Come on. So, yeah, I think that's about it on this camera. I do plan to shoot this a lot more. Like I say, might be kind of my everyday carry camera. I might do the... what's his name? The Joel Meyerowitz challenge, for a year. Take every picture one in black and white, one in color every time. This camera will make it super easy to do. You just flip to black and white, then flip back to color, challenge accepted, challenge met, So I might do that with this camera too. I'm kind of excited about that possibility. But yeah, I'm going to shoot this a lot more, so there'll be a lot more content on this Nikon ZF. And, sorry for the back and forth, but... this baby's here to stay, at least until the Leica SL3 comes out. So, yeah, I'm sure I'll get some comments on this. I got a ton of comments on the first ZF videos, so I'm hoping that, people are still looking for videos on the ZF. And we'll get a lot more engagement on this because I'm really excited about this right now. And, this lens did change everything for me. I'm in. You got it. It's enough retro for me now, baby. So, yeah. Let me know what you think. Is this crazy that I returned the camera and then bought it again a month later, 2 months later? Did I make a mistake buying this? Should I go with the Fuji? Is this obsession with the aperture ring crazy, or has Nikon really missed a trick with this and needs to jump on this bandwagon ASAP? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, and go pack, go.